Yeah, if you have to do a face palm, then it probably requires documentation.
There you go. Yeah.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
This is McCarran Holt with Georgia Spine and Orthopedics in Roswell, Georgia, and you are listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast.
Thank you for that intro, and welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims with HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Cardin. Welcome back, Donna Grindle.
It was good to get away.
Yeah, that was funny when I got the message from you yesterday. It's like, oh, these flights, I'm hurting.
Well, yeah, I had like a whole bunch of trips just packed in there, one right after another, and then a vacation at the end. So it was, I've been to Chicago and a few different clients, and then to Memphis to a conference, and then Sanibel and Key West, where I worked really hard.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say what I was working at, but
Yeah.
if you can't be good at it.
Yeah, I think they need to start putting like physical therapists on airplanes. You know,
I tell you, my back was
let's get up and
killing
moving
me.
around.
Yeah, I did. I got up and went back to the flight attendant's area and was trying to stretch because my back was bothering me so bad. And I haven't had back problems in a long time. And I'm like, now I remember why it makes you miserable. And that, you got to take the time as we get older and crunchy.
Crunch.
Stretch, people, stretch. When you bend and you hear, that's crunchy.
Yeah. Wow.
So the good news is we can count on healthcare IT to save us from ourselves.
You think?
I am. It's all I got. It's all I got. So, yeah. Advances in technology will improve medicine. I read an article that said we should all plan to live well into our hundreds.
Yeah.
So,
It's funny though that some people are like, no,
I don't want to live that long.
that's crazy. I don't mind the length. I just want the quality to be there.
Yeah, it's the quality of life. If I don't have that, I'm going to be real.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, we ain't doing that.
Yeah. I'll be the grouchy old man. I know that.
You're the grouchy young man. So, let's get to work then, brother.
All right. So today we're going to talk about social media and PHI. And specifically, there was a recent settlement that came out. And
Yes.
the interesting thing about it, and we'll go into this when we get into the show, but when you first see the headline, it's like, dentist office gets fined $10,000 for PHI, social media HIPAA violation. And so a lot of people are like, oh, $10,000, that's not worth even looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But they miss all the juicy stuff that's really deep in, the settlement. And so that's what we're going to get into. It's not, oh, it was $10,000 and that's not sexy like millions. This is one of those ones you really need to pay attention to because it is the small practice, because all these small practices think it won't happen to them. And it's not a hacker incident. All these things were like, well, I'm sure at some point somebody's going to hack me. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, you hack yourself.
Yes, the biggest problems are always on the inside.
Yes. And it was a dental office.
Yeah, because somehow they skirt under the law a lot.
Well, all of us know that they, for some reason, are the ones least likely to engage in worrying about these kinds of things. And they truly just think they don't need to. And this should be a wake-up call.
Yeah. I mean, in my limited experience, dentists and dental offices are the worst when doing this stuff. And not saying they all are, just my experience has been that it's terrible. You can't even have a conversation with them about it. They don't care at all.
Yes, I've slowly but surely made progress with my dentist.
Yeah. I was at a fall festival thing they had near this area last weekend, and they had local businesses, and one of them was a dentist office, and they just opened like 6 months ago. And so I was there attending, not there as a vendor, but I happened to bring up healthcare IT and HIPAA and all that, and he's like, "Oh, we're cloud based. I'm not worried about it." I'm like, what's being cloud based got to do with your compliance program
or privacy? Yeah, I mean nothing.
And he looks at me all cockeyed, like, "What are you talking about?" Uh-huh. and I gave him my card and I said, "You're going to need this at some point. Hold on to it."
Yeah, now you can just say, you should look up the settlement with the dental practice that had nothing to do with IT.
I know. But anyway, we're going to peel back that onion and watch Donna cry. But before we do that, do we have any announcements?
Just that you better sign up for the boot camp. You're running out of time because we now, we have confirmation and approval for 25, 26 HCCA CEUs all at one time. So HCCA, you get a year's worth of live training, all your CEUs in live training. And we will have one of the investigators from the Southeast Office for Civil Rights is going to stop by on Thursday afternoon and chat with us and answer your questions. And then, of course, you get to spend a wonderful amount of time with us.
Mm-hmm. More than you want.
Go to thehippabootcamp.com. That's thehippabootcamp.com. How's that, David?
All right. That's perfect.
All right. I'm glad you approve.
I do approve.
Every now and then, I got to get that from you. All right.
So nothing else coming up for the year. This is it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing some speaking stuff, but it's not in my brain right now. I think North Georgia AAPC is having me come in and some other folks. So, I've been on vacation.
Yeah. So we have a conference coming up, cybersecurity conference coming up on October 24th in the Indian Land, South Carolina area. So if you're interested in that, you can go to cybersecuritysummit.info. I'm also working with OCR to put together something in the Charlotte area for the first or second week in December. Don't have details on that yet, but OCR will be speaking and we will be hosting. So we're very excited about that.
Oh, yeah. I forgot I hooked you up with that, bro.
You did hook me up with that. So I got that going on. And then sometime in 2020, potentially I'll be out in Vegas.
Vegas, baby.
Speaking at a conference, and don't have any information on that yet either, but just throwing it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm planning out into 2020 already. There's one group hit me up wanting to do October, and by the time we kept working on scheduling, I think I ended up in May of 2020. It's just, but, I do love doing it, and you can still call. We'll see what we can do. But congratulations on, all the stuff David's now picking up. And let's get what is it? Let's get after it.
Let's get after it.
That's Chris Cuomo. He does that on his. Let's get after it.
All right.
Well, that's weird, but let's go with it.
All right. So we'll talk about social media and PHI and all that good stuff after the break.
Are you frustrated with your current IT provider? Are you sure you're getting the security and protection you need? Are you putting your patients and your practice at risk? If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, give Security First IT a call to learn more about how they can protect your patients, your practice, and your bottom line. Find them online at securityfirstit.com or call 980-288-5100.
The number of medical practices that think they're HIPAA compliant is pretty staggering. Effective privacy and security are an ongoing process, not a checklist. And that's why at Cardin, they don't just assess your situation and leave you with a report, but they work with you all along the way. Call Cardin today at 678-292-5001 or visit them on the web at cardinhq.com. Aren't your patients worth it? All right, so let's get into social media and PHI and the recent announcement.
Yeah. Let's get some people to understand that there's more to HIPAA than just passwords and stuff like that. Because, we've talked about how social media plays into it. And, we've had Janet Kennedy on here before talking about social media and the importance of understanding what you're doing, those kind of things. So when OCR's headline came out, most people are like, well, that's nothing. So, they move on because it wasn't a lot of money. But that to me said, hey, let me see what's going on in here. Of course, I would have read it anyway, so we're not fooling anybody. Yeah. The detail is in the detail. The juiciness is in the detail. The detail's in the detail. We have already established that I am having problems with words today. So good luck, everybody.
Yeah, the part that people often miss, and it's funny because we hear it all the time. You and I hear people say, well, that we don't know what OCR is really looking for, or that's just your opinion or whatever. It's like, dude, they give you all kind of information in these settlements and other stuff they put out all the time, but you're not reading it.
Yeah, this is like guidance.
Yes, but when we go through this, I mean, if you're not a dentist office, you still need to listen because we're going to go through a checklist, itemized checklist about things you should have straight from what OCR is saying.
So if you just pull some of these and you think you don't understand what you're supposed to do, go out to the website. They have the legal document that explains what went wrong, what they found that they violated under the HIPAA laws, and then here's the corrective action plan of all the things they expect them to do. So it's really easy if you use these, or you could just go to helpmewithhipaa.com and Google settlements and then or search settlements and you'll get them all. But here's the deal. We have to start with what had happened was
on
June 5th, 2016, a patient filed a complaint. This is the one that people don't realize gets you. And let me just tell you, there's the two primary ways. You have a major data breach and you have to self-report, or a patient files a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, things start happening. And the patient said that Elite Dental, we're going to call them Elite because it was Elite Dental something.
Associates.
There you go. Thank you. Some name. Anyway, it's a dental practice and in Dallas. Dallas.
Yeah, big Dallas.
Yeah.
The big D.
Yeah. Big hats, big belt buckles, and boots. So the patient said that they had the day before posted a review on Yelp, which is, for those of you who've never looked at Yelp, you should because it's got some good stuff. But you do reviews of everything out there, from restaurants and home services and doctor's offices and dentists. And many of them are, really pay attention to their Yelp reviews. And apparently this practice did. And this patient said something about what happened. And the doctor's office replied with information, including the patient's last name and other PHI in their response. So...
But we don't know what the specific response was, though, right?
I didn't try to go look for it because I'm sure it should be removed. We're going to assume it was removed. And it ain't none of our business.
Go to the Wayback Machine.
I know. There's so many ways that we could go look that up, and I'm just not going to. Because it was improper disclosure. Anyhow, here's the thing. When these things happen and the complaints get filed because something's out there, what people don't realize is that you're clueless that this is a problem. So clearly they were, because they were posting it. It could also happen that an employee does it, you don't even know it, and the complaint is filed. Or some researcher finds it and files a complaint. But what happens is OCR says, well, let me go look. They don't tell you boo. They just go look first and see what they can see. And OCR went and looked and said, oh my goodness, there's not just this patient's information, but multiple patients' information has been disclosed in these responses by the dental office on Yelp. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So not only is this patient, it's obvious this patient's information is there, but when they're looking at the responses from the office, they're doing it to other patients as well. So on November 9th, 2016, OCR notifies the dental office they're going to open an investigation into their privacy practices due to the complaint filed. Now, at this point, they already know there's issues. Cat's out of the bag. Usually, it's not like they just take the complaint and then call you up and say, hey, we're looking into it, give you time to reverse your activity. And sometimes the FBI calls people to tell them, hey, we found your stuff.
Yeah. We talked about this when we did this on a podcast. I would hang up on them. I'm like, this ain't the FBI.
I know, right?
This is a scam.
This is a scam. So whenever it's out in the public domain, however it leaked out there, that becomes immediate evidence that you can't, step away from, because they saw it with their own eyes, and they took screenshots of it. It's kind of like the bad guy who ditches everything they stole from the house, and the police actually see them throw it in a dumpster and go get it out, and I didn't do that.
Your eyes deceive you.
Yeah. Don't we love that? What you saw is not what happened. Okay, I wasn't at a Vegas magician act.
Yeah. I wonder if some people get mixed up with the fact that, like on social media, if a patient starts the conversation, I wonder if people don't realize that you can't continue the conversation and with it being like, oh, now I can say anything I want because they started the conversation.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. But the other part is they haven't really thought about what they're doing on social media at all.
Mm-hmm.
But there are cases, there was a big case where I think it was a Los Angeles hospital where patient, came out and said all these things about the treatment at the hospital, and the hospital's PR machine, if you will, came out and, let's just say, went off on the patient and provided all the details about their care because the patient said that. Well, the patient said it first, so now I can say everything, and it was found that is not the case. So we've already dealt with that in other cases. You're the one that's obligated not to disclose. The patient can choose to disclose, but you're still obligated not to.
Yeah. So even if they disclose, you still cannot say anything about it.
Right. The law says you can't disclose, period. So you do not engage if the patient's disclosing. And that's what was happening.
No if then statements on this one.
Yeah. For all the nerds. So they've seen it with their own eyes. They got screenshots of it. The evidence already there. So then they need to understand how this happened in your privacy program. And so then they're going to call up and they're going to say things like, show me your social media policies and procedures, how you train your staff on it, who's responsible for managing your social media sites, and how did this happen? That would probably be scratching the surface of the 10 or 12 things that they would ask for in that first notification. And by the way, give me that in 10 days. So the bottom line is, in the investigation, it was pretty easy for them to say, yep, there was an improper disclosure. Then the only question was, is it from individual failing to follow policy and procedure, or is it an organizational issue?
Mm-hmm.
So since there's a settlement, we're going to go with organizational issue. And always, Director Severino, the OCR director's quote in every one of these press releases about a settlement, tells you what they did wrong in a bullet, so the rest of you can learn just from that statement.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to name it? You want to hit the quote, or you
I'll hit it.
Hit it.
I'll do it. So he says, social media is not the place for providers to discuss patients' care. And you almost want to put a duh after that. Doctors and dentists, he mentioned dentist, must think carefully about patient privacy before responding to online reviews. End quote.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
It's not where you talk about it.
Yeah.
And you need to think carefully, not angrily, and it doesn't matter what they say. We go through and help people build these policies, and we'll get into the different ones you need to have, because you don't want to be thinking about it when you're mad about what somebody said.
Mm-hmm.
You want to say, look, we already got this figured out. This is what we got to do.
Yep.
So under the investigation, though, they always say, here's exactly the things that were violations of HIPAA, which was they impermissibly disclosed PHI. We know that.
Yeah.
Boom. They failed to implement policies and procedures with respect to PHI, including releasing PHI on social media and public platforms. Now, that is an important statement. Why is that important, Dave?
Because, number one, that's the failure that happened here. But number two, is most people don't go down this path when they talk about releasing information.
Yeah. They failed to implement policies and procedures with respect to PHI.
Mm-hmm.
All. Including those releasing them on social media.
Yeah, but
So,
you didn't have to wonder which policy and procedure they had or didn't have.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
as you read between the lines as we go forward, you're like, I don't know that they have that much.
Right. You're going to get into that in just a minute. You can tell. And they failed to have the minimum content required in its notice of privacy practices.
Now that one's kind of strange. Only because there are so much out there that OCR and HHS and all that they basically give them to you. Like, here's your policy, or here's your NPP right here. Just
But what have we talked
blanks.
about? When we review NPPs and the requirements and the minimum requirements of NPPs in the boot camp,
mm-hmm.
and there's a checklist that we created based on what the law says. And unfortunately, even the free ones don't meet all that checklist. But most of the time, when they hand you one and it's the free ones that, from the contest,
mm-hmm.
and it says step A, fill in your practice here, and it still says fill in practice name here.
Yep.
And the steps are still listed and the blanks are not filled in. That's a lack of effort.
Yeah, and I have seen those.
Yeah, plenty of them. And my other one is on the website. You go to, because, when we do an assessment, that's one of the first places we go. We go to the website. We say, what's out here? What are you asking for? What are you looking at? Because we can do that ourselves. Where's your notice of privacy practices? Let's see what's out there. Does it match what you're giving out? So that's one of our places. And I went to one site. Now, granted, not a customer. It was another thing that I went to the site about. Because sometimes, if I go to a site because it's somewhere I might go, or, I go look for the notice of privacy practices.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I actually saw this where it said on its notice of privacy practices, it basically said you can get one at the office. Okay, right away, that's a HIPAA failure to all of you who think that's an acceptable way. It's not. It's supposed to be posted prominently on your website. Well, clearly there were issues in this one. So, because I've never seen it pointed out that specifically. So you got to wonder what's in it.
Mm-hmm.
Or what may not have been in it, I think is the better question, because it didn't have it. So, yeah, it seems like that's a small amount. But the other thing that OCR included in their press release was a specific statement that OCR accepted a substantially reduced settlement amount in consideration of Elite's size, financial circumstances, and cooperation with OCR's investigation.
Mm-hmm. And all of those points are important.
Yeah. So we always tell each other, I tell everybody the least of your concerns are those maximum penalties. If you're making any substantial effort, that should not be your concern. It's the corrective action plan and the legal implications and the reputation issues and all the other things, because they do. If you're showing remorse, you get a better sentence.
Yeah.
This is a plea deal.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is I think people get caught up in these big numbers, and so you have a small practice, and they see this, this $2 million settlement. And they're like, dude, I'd close shop and I'd move to Mexico.
Right.
Well, this shows you here that that's not exactly what they're trying to do. This particular place, and I know nothing about it, but $10,000 is probably a bit painful, but it's not going to put them out of business.
Exactly.
And that's what they're going to do. They're going to find where is it hurt enough to get your attention, but you're going to have to fix these things. You're not going to be able to, I started to say you're not going to be able to shut down and run, but we've seen people do that.
Yeah. We have, haven't we? And that didn't work out for them either, just FYI. There's 2 settlements last year where that was clear. And the other thing is, this is what we tell groups that they come to us, and when we get them, they're under investigation, is we're going to do everything we can to try to get you a settlement like this one. That's our objective. If we do better than that, great. I'm going to try to make sure this is what we get. Something in this area.
Right. You will throw yourself on the mercy of the court.
Yeah. Please forgive me. But that's essentially what needs to happen, because if you're going to show, wow, I did not mean to make these mistakes. I just didn't pay enough attention to prevent myself from making these mistakes, which, well, we don't need to go into that. But the bottom line is they will be reasonable. They're looking for protecting patients, not getting money out of you, even though that's what everybody says. Oh, the government's got to get their money. They're not interested in it. The financial sector, whole different ballgame. But this one, they really want compliance to protect patients. They want you to be in business. They want you to just take care of your patients, even including their data. And that's why they gave them the $10,000 and they cooperated. They get a full 2-year corrective action plan, though. And based on the items in the corrective action plan, you can tell there was basically check the box compliance going on, if at all.
I would have been like, can we just double my fine and not do the cap?
Your fine would be way more.
Because the corrective action plan is going to cost them a lot more. And it's things they should be doing anyway. But as we'll get into it, we see that it's not like, hey, within the next 2 years, we need these things done. We'll get into that. But it's going to be like, oh my gosh, I got to get that done. And when?
Yeah. So, when we work with clients, we tell them when we come in, it takes about 2 years to get a stable, functioning program. That's why these caps are usually 2 years. Sometimes they're a year because you've gotten some of it, but you need more. But if I went into a site that clearly has problems like this one, I would expect, no matter the size, about 2 years. And that includes a lot of stuff. And sometimes we have to get distracted with things like this investigation that keeps it from happening. But once you're on this cap, everything changes. Because now your OCR is directing your program, not Carden, helping you build the program and showing you what to do and giving you the advice and holding your hand and taking you through it, which is what we do. And, we nag you and all of that, but we're not going to, because if you don't meet these deadlines, you got 30 days to do stuff. You got 60 days to do stuff. You got 30 days to, you have to do an annual report. You have to report on blah, blah, blah within 30 days. We don't do that. Although maybe we should. Maybe we should start a corrective action plan.
Yeah. Maybe you should have like a VOCR.
Yeah, that's it. But the stress of having to file those reports and everything you file with them has to be attested by ownership or leadership. Some officer of the company has to attest that they have reviewed this and they're good with it. Meaning leadership buy-in. Hey, wait, we've never talked about that.
Only every time.
So here are the things that in the cap, and a lot of this is the normal stuff, but we haven't been through it in detail in a while. So you've got develop, maintain, and revise as necessary written policies and procedures to comply with the federal standards that govern. Are you ready for this? The privacy and security of individually identifiable health information.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, note that it says privacy and security.
Yep.
So that also tells us check the box at best. Provide such policies and procedures consistent with paragraph 1 above, meaning the ones we just told you about, to HHS within 30 calendar days, not 30 business days, 30 calendar days of the effective date for review and approval. So you have to develop your entire set of policies and procedures within 30 days.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that right there, I'm already like, you're going to be hiring some people.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to get other things done. And again, remember, we said it takes 2 years, and you start, a lot of times we'll do an assessment, and then we start on policy and procedure development. And our process, because of the way we do it, you actually understand them at the end, but we make you think them through. In this scenario, boy, you're going to just sit down and that's all you're going to do every day. And we've had people do it in a short time frame like this because they were under, some requirement that had nothing to do with OCR. It's just, hey, we got to make this better immediately. And it was an investment the company made. But, one person, that's all they did. And then they would manage what was going on, create the proposals, and then meet with the right people, so on and so forth. That's the only way you can get it done. Is 1 or 2 people, that's all they're doing until it's done. But then you send it to OCR, and if they've got problems with it, that goes back and forth until you meet their approval. But once they approve it, you got 30 days to implement all of them.
Again, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and people don't realize it's not that easy. It's not simple stuff. You've got to, within that 30 days of implementation, you've got to distribute to all members of the workforce and get them to sign off that they have read them and understand them. And you also have, and this is another thing that people always ask about, when I have a new workforce member, how long do I have? Within 30 calendar days of the beginning of service for that workforce member, they have to review and sign off that they understand it.
Yeah, but there's also a little bit of a caveat to that too.
And what's that?
I don't know if I want to get into it now or wait till you get to it.
Yeah, there is.
We'll wait, but there's something else there. Like when you have a new workforce member, I'll bring it up when we get to it. Go ahead.
So you got 30 days to have them read your policies and procedures and a signed written or electronic initial compliance certification from all members of the workforce. All.
And what does all mean?
Everybody. So then they shall assess, update, and revise as necessary the policies and procedures at least annually, with any changes being approved by HHS during the cap. So you've got to constantly review them at least one more time during the 2-year cap, possibly 2, and get HHS approval. So you got to file that to them and get approval. Again, not easy. Shall not involve any member of its workforce in the use or disclosure of PHI if that workforce member has not signed or provided the written or electronic certification.
Okay, so there it is. How many people hire somebody and they are able to use PHI and have not signed off on any kind of policy and procedure? So they at first they say you have 30 days, but then they say this person you hired can't do their job that you hired them for until they do it.
Well, some people put them into training programs. So, there is that. But not in a small office like this. They're expecting them, we're going to start throwing stuff at you right away.
Yeah, day one, which, no.
No. And I like the next one, a revision to policies and procedures that address permissible and impermissible uses and disclosures of PHI and appropriate administrative, technical, and physical safeguards to protect the PHI, the privacy of PHI. So it's not just privacy, but the appropriate administrative, technical, physical, which talks about the security rule.
Mm-hmm.
That the revisions have to take place on all of them. And then this one I thought was interesting. Revise authorization form to comply with the requirements of the privacy rule. I wonder what they did wrong on the authorization form, including a description of how the individual may revoke the authorization and a statement regarding a covered entity's ability or inability to condition treatment, payment, enrollment, or eligibility for benefits on the authorization. So even their initial paperwork wasn't complete. Yeah. So you know what that makes me think is they had, from the original HIPAA, they bought some templates and never looked at it again.
Yeah, they developed something a long time ago, and then when things changed, they didn't change with it.
Yeah. So I'm going to assume that. That is an assumption. We'll be clear on that. And then develop a process for evaluating and approving authorizations requesting the use or disclosure of PHI by Elite before Elite makes such uses or disclosures.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I know. Revise the notice of privacy practices to comply with the requirements of the privacy rule, including a description of uses and disclosures of PHI for which Elite is required to obtain an individual's authorization. And then they put in a little example. Posting on Elite's website, social media pages, and or other public platforms. So we have to have your approval before we do any of that. And then is the really hard part. Identify personnel or representatives whom workforce members, agents, or business associates may contact in the event of any inquiry or concern regarding compliance with HIPAA in relation to these activities.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody better know.
You better call Card, and I don't know.
Yeah, we do get a lot of those calls. But, that's one of the reasons people are like, hey, we would like to sign up with you. Even on vacation, I answered like 4 of those calls. Just saying. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But you have to say, this is the person that's going to know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know about you, but I would suggest that person come to the HIPAAbootcamp.com. Because we've had people that worked in health systems and thought they really knew everything and literally throw their pen down in the middle of a conversation and say, well, I've done that wrong the whole time.
Yeah, I've never heard about this. Yeah, I've done this for years. I've never heard that.
Never heard it. We're reading the law. We're not, we're not giving advice. We're reading the law. So that tells you somebody in your office needs to understand and be the point person right there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're giving you guidance. Then we get into people getting in trouble. Develop internal reporting procedures, which will require all workforce members to report to the designated person or office at the earliest possible time any potential violations of the privacy, security, or breach notification rules, number 1, or of Elite's privacy and security policies and procedures.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 2 different things. Because your policies and procedures are above and beyond just what the privacy, security, and breach notification rules say.
Yep. And, we hear that 3-letter word again, all workforce members, because, hey, Mr. Doctor and Dentist, Leadership comes from the top.
Yeah. CEO, all you folks, such reporting procedures shall require Elite to promptly investigate and address all received reports in a timely manner. Yeah. Think about that. Not, so-and-so didn't do this right. Darn it. I'll deal with that next week. But no, deal with it immediately. And then once you've done that investigation, you are supposed to application and documentation of appropriate sanctions, which may include retraining or other instructive corrective action, depending on the circumstances. Sanctions against members of Elite's workforce, including, and this is where they don't just say all, including senior level management who fail to comply with the privacy, security, or breach notification rules or Elite's privacy and security policies and procedures.
Which makes me wonder who posted on Yelp.
Exactly. But again, they're going above and beyond saying all workforce at this point and saying you should sanction senior level management. And we had a settlement last year where the privacy officer told the physician, you shouldn't do that.
Keep your mouth shut.
What I should have said was nothing. You can look up that episode. This is the one about social media and PHI, but that one, I should have said nothing because you're told to say nothing, and then they didn't sanction them when they did it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that documentation, and this is one where we have people who say, I don't understand why you won't say I'm good to go on my compliance. If you don't have this one piece is something that's in every single thing I see. And in their requests, in an investigation, we see it in almost every single corrective action plan. It's always there that you need to have sanctions. You got to apply appropriate sanctions to a policy that's clear and documentation of it. And their documentation says the content shall include, shall, not should, shall include a description of the sanctions, a time frame in which Elite will apply and document sanctions for violations of HIPAA rules or Elite's privacy, security, or breach policies and procedures, the manner in which Elite will document the sanctions, and where Elite will store or retain such documentations, like in the personnel file. That tells you exactly how you're supposed to do your sanction policy right there.
Yep.
And so many sanction policies, we'll find the sanction policy says, if somebody screws up, we're going to do something about it. That's it. That's like no policy at all. And then when you say, I need some documentation for you done sanctions. Well, we haven't had to do any sanctions. That's impossible. People make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Your sanctions should include verbal warning, instructive corrective action where, hey, I need you to remember you shouldn't do this. Here's why. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was worried about such and such and I forgot. Okay, if you do it again, we're going to have to talk about this. I got this. That is sanction.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have to do a face palm, then it probably requires documentation. And sanction.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. So, I just had a conversation yesterday with one of our clients talking about the documentation isn't there. And this is what I need you to do. And they understood. They're like, yeah, you're right. We don't have that, and we should have it. And we know that they're doing the sanctions. They're saying, hey, don't do that, and reminding everybody and showing them stuff and do it. But no one's following any kind of policy and procedure for documentation. And even if they did, no one would know where it is. So then comes the next part, though, because during the cap, those sanctions get a little bit more complicated. So what you should be doing, and this gets back to, this is happening, so there should be sanctions.
Mm-hmm.
Upon receiving information that a workforce member may have failed to comply with the policies and procedures, promptly investigate the matter. If after review and investigation, Elite determines that a member of its workforce has failed to comply, Elite shall notify HHS in writing within 30 calendar days. And the notification must include a description of the event, relevant facts, people involved, the specific policies and procedures that were violated, details about the action taken, any further steps that Elite's going to take to deal with the matter, mitigate harm, prevent it from recurring, including application of appropriate sanctions against workforce members who fail to comply with the policies and procedures.
Well, there's your checklist.
Hello. And then it says, if there are no reportable events over a year, then in your annual report, you better explain that there were no events that occurred that, we're going to document that we truly had no one do anything that we needed to notify you about.
I do find it interesting they didn't say document that no events occurred. They said explain that no events occurred.
Explaining that no events occurred. Yeah. Explain. Explain, Lucy, how this happened. So that alone, that section is where when we're doing our assessments, most people, even if they have a fairly good program, that's the part they don't have is, showing that they're actually enforcing stuff. And then, of course, the rest of it, the training we all know is there.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do all the training within 30 days. Plus, no employee should be allowed to touch PHI without confirming they understand the training they were given.
Yep, said that previously.
Yeah. Training must be reviewed and updated annually.
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody tell me you only had to train every other year. It's like weird.
Well, we get into
about
this.
something else.
Yeah, we get into this every time when we start talking about training, which annually is not enough.
No.
So, I don't think they're saying it has to be annual training and that's all you can be, but that would be the bare minimum. And even that, I wish they would change.
Right. Yeah, because we're talking about check the box compliance versus actually worrying about privacy and security. Two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Then Elite has 30 days from the settlement to properly notify any patient that had PHI exposed on Yelp reviews and provide confirmation of those notifications to HHS within that same 30 days by putting the details on the breach portal. They need to provide implementation reports attested to by officers of the company within 60 days of approval of the policy and procedures. And it must document all training and attestations from staff. They have to include that documentation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to do an annual report showing what's been done based on our list of things that we're supposed to be doing in our risk management and all that, attested to by an officer of the company that they have confirmed the report details to be complete and true. Okay. Anybody that says HIPAA made easy, there you go.
Yeah. Show me how this is going to be easy.
Yeah, because that's what it is. And this is our problem with everybody that says HIPAA made easy because that stuff's not happening.
Yeah.
If a checkbox, you check a box and say, no, I don't have this policy, and then you automatically get a template that you fill in, and now you're good to go. Hello, you're not reading it. You don't know what's in it. You're not implementing it. You're not showing any training on it. You're just checking the box that now I have a policy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. See that all the time. They think that compliance means they have documentation, meaning policies and procedures.
Yeah, not operational documentation that I'm following the policies.
Right. You're not following it. You're not training on it. Actually, if you think about the annual training, really, if you do the training properly, where you're training on each policy and procedure and HIPAA and security awareness and all that, yeah, you probably will cover everything one time annually, but you'll need to have a training session at least every other week to get everything in.
Right. Yeah, it's fly by night kind of thing. So. But here's the net that as far as what we see you should be getting out of this in just a net kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have specific and detailed social media, period. And that social media policy shouldn't be, this is what we're going to do on our social media. It needs to be very specific Who's going to reply to post? How are you going to deal with negative reviews? How are you going to deal with patients posting information about their care, whether it's good or bad? What are you going to respond to? What do you want to make sure staff do with their own social media, as David found online with the dentist office that we use, where the person's talking about a patient that goes there and how they're a creep.
Yep.
Yep. And we have that in one of our episodes. So you got to make sure that the patients, that your staff understands, don't friend your patients.
Yeah.
If you were friends with them and they become patients, different story. But even then, don't talk about work online, period. Just don't talk about work, because somehow they'll screw up.
Well, here's another thing that we haven't brought up is how many people outsource their social media posting and all that stuff to, another company, which are you training this company, or do they have any training? Do they understand HIPAA at all?
Mm-hmm. Do they understand your obligations and your policies and procedures concerning social media?
Right. So if you're outsourcing that, which happens a lot, you're outsourcing your social media management to somebody else.
And they're not a business associate, because you don't have to give them PHI. You shouldn't have PHI out there. But guess what? This could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, we just don't want to know. But, what we always say is, in a case like that, if somebody's posting something negative, you post, sorry to hear, that you have this, or something like, please send any comments you have, contact the office directly with any concerns, and we'll be happy to take care of it. And you don't acknowledge whether they're even a patient.
Yep.
You just don't. If somebody posts something, you say, thanks for the kind words. That's it. You don't acknowledge they're a patient. Like, it was great to see you too. So glad your teeth look better. None of that. You don't do it. And if people do post, you need to have a policy posted on your social media pages that say, look, we're not going to post PHI, and we encourage you not to.
Yeah. Or think about the kids that come in and they take pictures of the kids, the next thing you know, it shows up on social media.
So you definitely need the social media thing. You also need to learn that cooperating and showing remorse is the best way to handle these situations when they occur, because fighting them is not going to be effective. MD Anderson is now in a lawsuit. They filed a lawsuit after the administrative law judge said, y'all violated the law. Here you go.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still claiming they shouldn't have to follow the law, essentially. They're saying you're being too mean to us. But get your ducks in a row now, because the more you do now, even if there is a problem, you'll be better off and have a shorter corrective action plan and less work to do.
I'm all about less work.
Yeah. So there you go.
Wow.
I know, right?
Just wow.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started reading it, as soon as I saw that first 30-day mark, you got to have all this stuff done in 30 days. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And that's a normal corrective action plan. We've done an episode where we went through every single step of a much bigger one. But the thing is, this one doesn't even really touch on security rule requirements. It says you have to have the policy and implement it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't ding them on that.
And it's people often say, I don't have time to do this. Well, yeah, I get it. But imagine if somebody walked in and said, you have to have this done in 30 days.
Yeah. You ain't got time to do nothing else.
Yeah. It's like, okay, we're not going to see any patients for 30 days.
It's like, what are you going to do? So, and the other thing that I don't think people realize a lot of times is that, you're bumping along, and then all of a sudden this drops in your lap.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go through, this happened in 2016. They're announcing it today in 2019. It's been 3 years. They've been dealing with it. And that if they fail that corrective action plan, this settlement, this plea deal is gone.
Yep.
And then they go to the administrative law requirements and follow what the law says on enforcement.
And that will be very bad.
Yeah. So if you violate this corrective action plan, it's like violating parole. You're going back to jail.
Mm.
So there you go.
All right. Well, I hope people are paying attention. Yeah.
Yep. I feel bad for folks when they're having to do this. And that's why, like I said, we try very, very hard to make sure if you're under investigation that you may have some corrective action, but it doesn't require a settlement.
Mm.
And if it's too late for us to prevent that, then we want the settlement to be something like this. Because this is, considering the scenario, this isn't bad. What could have happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a nuisance, but it's doable.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. We should maybe waited to include that in the horror stories next week.
Yep. Next week is the Halloween episode.
Yeah. Everybody looks forward to that one.
You do. I don't know if everybody else does.
All right, folks. So that is our show for today. Remember to follow us and share us out on your favorite social media site. You can mention us. Social media.
Yes. Thank you for all that you do. Those of you who do share about us. Yay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no HIPAA violation to mention us on social media.
No, it does not.
You can also rate us in our podcasting app. Yes, we have a podcasting app. We need your help spread the word. So keep it up. For those of you who are doing it, we much appreciate it. So for Donna and myself, remember that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.